Welcome to the Sacred Emergence podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wong, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is a place where you'll be guided to living your most aligned life so that your truest, most radiant self can emerge. We'll be jamming on topics ranging from spirituality, entrepreneurship, to wellness and lifestyle design, and everything in between that can support you to grow, evolve, and shine, all the while not taking ourselves too seriously. So if you're ready to step into your leadership, break through limiting beliefs, own all of who you are, and expand in abundance, grab yourself your faith cup of tea and let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sacred Emergence. It's Michelle Wong, and I'm so excited to introduce to you our guest for today. Georgina Morshdy joins us live from the UK, and live for us doing the interview. As you're listening, it is the replay. But Georgina is a message muse, and I'm so excited to talk to you today, Georgina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so you and I connected actually through the Alpha Femme community. And we've got the chance to really work together over time through human design, which we can talk about later. But I'm so fascinated with your work because you really stand for using our voice and our message. And you just have such a powerful perspective on it that I'm so excited to dive in and also I'll learn more about your journey in the process as well.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, so you're all about finding your unique self so that it's the message that that comes through our own uniqueness is going to be a catalyst for growth. So can you share a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that we're in this really interesting age right now. I think it's been social media was really the catalyst for this, where suddenly everyone has access to a platform. So I think in the past, maybe you needed to have a book deal, you need to be on TV to really reach a wider audience. But nowadays, anyone can say something, whether it's on a podcast, on an email, on their blog, on social media, etc. And so what this means is we have this beautiful opportunity to be much more specific with our message. And what I mean by that is there's so many different ways to kind of find your uniqueness, but this key point about who you are is almost more important than what you know now. And the reason I say that is because we live in this age of information overload and maybe even information overwhelm. And when I was a kid at school, if you had information in your head, or it was seen as an advantage, and if you didn't know something, you'd have to go to the library or you'd have to ask a parent or a teacher. Whereas nowadays, information literally is at the click of a button. We can find it instantly online. If my kids ask me a question I don't know the answer to, I just Google it. And so knowledge isn't the differentiator in the way that it used to be in the past, in my opinion. And so what we have this invitation to do now is to find another way to differentiate ourselves. And this is where your you comes in. So this notion that who you are as an individual is the thing that makes you different. And your message is unique because you are the lens through which you're sharing that message. So other people can be sharing similar things to you, but what makes it different is your perspective because of who you are, what your personality is, how you've lived. All those different things create something very specific and unique. And that is what I think the you is.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Especially what you were saying around information. That's not what makes a person stand out. And at the same time, it's I feel we can all fall into I need to know more, and then disconnect with who we actually are and how we show up is more important. So I love that you distinguish the difference between that's you and how you're the vehicle for the message to come through and your perspective. That's amazing. How did you come to that awareness?
That's a cool question. And I just want to say as well, I'm not saying that knowledge isn't important. Of course, knowledge is important for the credibility piece, but it's the attraction. How are you attracting people? Actually, it's your essence that is the thing that make people decide whether or not they want to work with you. It's how you make them feel when you show up. And so I think the way I kind of stumbled into this kind of work is when I when I first started my copywriting business, which was in 2011, I was really, people used to say, you know, who's your customer avatar? Like, who are you targeting? And I always really struggle with like really defining my avatar, because it wasn't a specific business area. It wasn't a particular age group. Like, I was finding that I was attracting very, very different people, but there was this common thread. When I really started to look at it, I found this common thread, and it was people that had something really interesting to say. So it's someone that had a distinction in a niche, like someone with a strong message. And I started to really like realize that this is really cool. Like, people that have got something unique to say. Like, I want to help these people amplify who they are and what their message is. And like, personally, I've always loved having like deep dive conversations with people, like really getting on a call and understanding who that person is. And for me, I got so much from that too, because it was a learning process as well. And I just got so much pleasure from helping people like understand and find that uniqueness within. And I often be on a call with someone, they'd tell me something, I'd be like, oh, that's amazing, wow. And sometimes, because it's your life and you've lived it and you're so close to it, you can't always see what other people can see. You don't always see your own magic. And so I realized I was becoming almost this mirror, when I would be able to say, that's really cool, like, let's join these dots up, and turning that into like a powerful message, giving people a voice.
I love that. First, I love that you realize, like, because I've done customer avatars for like business, and I've always struggled with it. And so I love that you were able to like pinpoint, like, this is a common thread. And like, I've been on your podcast, and I have to say, like, I'm one-on-one with you, when you're like wanting to learn more, like, you ask incredible questions, and you have this ability to pull things out. Yeah. I know, like, from our interview, I was like, whoa, like, this is information I've not shared before. And it was just how you like just the way that you were inquiring. It was really powerful. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And that's and it's interesting, because this is where the you piece comes in, right? Because I didn't realize that was a thing until people started saying that kind of feedback to me. It was just something I just did kind of almost naturally. And in my head, it was, oh, I'm having this conversation to extract some information for copy. And it wasn't until people started to say, oh, I've never thought of it that before, or I've never told anyone that story before. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There's this like creative space with message making, where the right conversation, the right question, very important, the right space where you can speak into or express into that space, and suddenly different aspects of your message can start tumbling out. And this is where you really start to find unique aspects, because you don't always see it yourself when you're so close to it. And sometimes it takes that conversation, or this is another reason why I love journaling, because just that writing on paper, getting things out of yourself, and then being able to see it, you start to make really powerful distinctions and insights into your message.
So in terms of like finding, I guess, like, as I'm asking the question, I can see the connection to the personal growth, right? Like, finding our you. So what's the process then?
Yeah. So personal development for me is a thread that's woven through my life for the last like 23 years. I would say it's the first time I was 23 when I first kind of discovered personal development. And the way I discovered personal development was, I basically got diagnosed with depression. And the doctor suggested that I went for counselling. I was like, okay. So I went for counselling, and it was the most liberating experience I've ever had, because in that moment I realised that actually I could change my thoughts. Like, until that point, I had no comprehension whatsoever that I was able to change my thoughts. And so that really kickstarted this passion for self-discovery. So the usual things, went to Tony Robbins, I did the Landmark Forum, I quit corporate and trained to become a complementary therapist, because I wanted to do something that was helping. And I went on this journey of spiritual growth, etc., etc. And what I found is, and this is what I love about the duality of message making, because sure, there's this one aspect, it's about putting a message out there that is going to attract your perfect customer. But there's this other piece that your message, I believe your message is very often either something that life has taught you, or it's something that life is teaching you. And so when your message becomes this context for your life, and you're really invested in it, you're exploring it, you're reflecting on it, of course you're going to grow as an individual. And because you're sharing it, and I really found this out when I was a teacher. I was a teacher for a decade before I went into copywriting. And I really found from teaching is this notion of having to learn something and embody it so you can share it with other people. That is one of the best ways to learn. Like, you learn so much from teaching something to other people. You have to know the knowledge at a different kind of level. And so this is what I love about message making, because it is about your own personal growth and evolution as well. Because when you're on that path of personal development, like, there is no end point. There's always scope for more. You know, it's Michelle, every time you think I've arrived, I'm there, it's like, no, there's just another door opens and there's this whole new realm of possibility to step into. And I just also love this notion that there doesn't need to be a distinction between work and play. That you can just live your life, and work can be an extension of who you are. And so if it's the work becomes the thing that helps you grow, and the thing that enables you to express yourself and have an opinion and be seen and heard for who you really are, well, that's so, for me, that's just the work. I think it's such a powerful place to be in.
Oh my goodness. So I like all the things that you shared. I was like, I had no idea that you used to be a teacher. Like, you have such an incredible journey, and I could see how, like, even all of, like, it takes courage. It takes, like, the fact that you've quit your job and then you've gone on this own process yourself. Like, it's given you so much wisdom to, like, to just have flow through you. So like, if somebody, let's just say, doesn't necessarily have that, right? Maybe they are right now, they're in a corporate job. Like, what would be the suggestion to, like, where would they start? Like, what's their message?
That's a cool question. And I think it's looking at, like, what is life teaching you? Like, what is life teaching you right now? And one exercise I love to do with people is unlocking your timeline. And so it's like looking back over the course of your life and identifying all, like, the key events, the milestone moments or the meaningful moments, like figuring out what did you learn from them, and then looking at the thread. So one of my favorite quotes is the Steve Jobs quote about how things might not make sense in the moment, but we need to trust that at some point, with hindsight, we'll look back and we'll be able to join up the dots. And that's what happens when you start to unlock your timeline. Because one powerful thing we have as humans is we have this ability to create meaning. Like, we can create meaning out of anything. And so as the author of your own life, you get to tell that story. So you can tell the story of how those dots join up. And so for me, for example, the thread that flows through my life for sure is writing, but it's also this desire to be seen and heard for who I really am, to be seen for who I really am. And that's really what message making is all about. This is who I am, this is what I believe, being authentic. So that's such a powerful practice to do, this unlocking your timeline, because what you'll find is there is a thread. So my career path, for example, is very convoluted. So I went from supermarket management to, I worked in logistics, I became a complementary therapist, I became a teacher, and then I became a copywriter, and then this message Muse. And you're like, that makes no sense. Surely there's no kind of common thread through that. But there is. The common thread is the communication. That's a common thread that goes through all of it. And just getting clear on what life is teaching you, because I have this belief that we all hold a piece of someone else's jigsaw. So what that means is, like, life has taught me something, and as a result, I've figured something out. I've figured something out that can help someone else. And so when I share that piece of the jigsaw, and the right people see me, hear me, they resonate with me because they can see part of themselves in me. When I share my message and my processes and my philosophies, etc., what happens is I can help that person compress time, because they can achieve what I was able to do, but quicker, because they can learn from my mistakes. They can just pass those stepping stones much faster. And we all have that. We all have a piece of someone else's jigsaw. And I think there's like divine intervention in this, because when we share that, it enables us to collaborate together. So message making is also a collaboration. You sharing what you know is going to help someone else. Then we work together, and then we rise. And that's just the collective consciousness. So there's something as simple as I'm sharing a post on social media, for example. Actually, when you unpick it and you think about actually what's going into that, what's really happening behind the scenes, it's huge, in my opinion.
That's incredible. I love how, like, just how you were sharing, weaving that piece together. And I love how you're saying, like, we all hold a jigsaw puzzle for somebody else. I've not heard of that analogy before. And it's such a great visual. And then what you were saying about, like, even writing a post on Facebook, like it's true. Like, anytime I share a post that is thoughtful, it's a longer post, I share authentically based on something that's happened to me. Right. And then I tease it out in a way that it can be useful. It's not just like me, right? And so I love that you recognize that as well, because that is all in the messaging. Yeah. Like, that's just so beautiful. And what you were saying about social media, even, like, it's a place where we can all stand out and share our message.
Definitely. And this is the magic. I mean, I think this is the age of the individual messenger right now.
Yeah.
And that's such a powerful age, because you don't have to necessarily attract people in your local area. Like, your audience can be anywhere. And so you have the opportunity now to be as much as authentically you as you're willing and daring, and as you're courageous to go. Like, we have this opportunity to know that there will be people out there that we can best serve. There are people that we can best serve. And so you don't have to wear the mask. Well, we do now with COVID, but you know what I mean, the metaphorical mask. We don't have to wear the metaphorical mask. And we don't have to be a different person in our business than we are in our life. Like, we can be ourselves. And personally, I think this is where humanity's going right now. I think this next stage for human evolution is for us to really understand who we are as beings. It's this age of inward looking, because message making from you, like understanding your message, the message you're here to share, you need to go inward to access that, because you're not going to find it in any marketing book or any other book, because it has to be your perspective, like what you've embodied, what you believe. And the only way you can find that is by going inward. And I think this introspection is so powerful, it's so healing, because we get to see what triggers us, we get to see what we love, we get to see what's out of alignment, and then we get to create the life that is in most flow, most alignment. And I just feel that's, if as more of us do that, as more of us walk this path, so much harmony is going to come as a result of it.
So I think, like, sharing our message, like finding the message and knowing it is one thing. Sharing it can be like a totally different ball game, right? Because it requires us to show up and be vulnerable. So what's your journey with that, and how, like, what advice do you have for people who, are on that precipice?
Yeah, this is such an important question. And, like, people can't see the video now, but my throat is really red right now, because actually being seen and heard for who you are is challenging, especially if you have a backstory of not feeling seen and heard or accepted for who you are. And that's certainly something that I've had in my past. And I can still remember the first time I sent a personal email to my list. Like, literally, my heart was racing, my hands were sweaty, I thought I was going to be sick, and I was like hovering over the send button. Can I send? Should I send? What's going to happen if I send this email? And I'd hit send and I have to physically leave the room, because it was just so overwhelming. And it's the thing about your personal message is, you're right, there's no hiding. Or if you are hiding, it's not authentic. And so this is where I think message making as well is this avenue for personal growth and personal development, because you have to get to a place where you trust yourself, like you love yourself, you appreciate yourself, because without those components, or at least being on the journey to having those components, like your voice is going to be stifled, because you're going to be thinking, oh, what if I get judged? What if I get criticized? It would be much harder to kind of cope with the backlash. And this is why I feel message making is also so powerful, because it does inspire that personal healing journey. And so in terms of my own journey, I think I started posting on Facebook properly in like 2016. So it's been about 5 years now. And it was definitely like a slow process of cultivating the courage to move beyond just sharing knowledge to sharing my personal stories as to how I got that knowledge. And then it was just starting small, like taking a few risks, seeing how it felt. Like, okay, I'm still here, it's fine. It wasn't as bad as I thought, right? How can I stretch this? How can I stretch this? And then it's this process of just gradually stretching. But it's also about just really getting comfortable with expressing yourself. And so you can do that in a way that isn't visible. So I journal a lot. A lot of my ideas never make it publicly. They're just for me. But it is definitely a muscle. So Michelle, I know you've done this too, but recently I've been doing like a Facebook Live challenge. So I reached the point where I was very, very comfortable writing. And writing has always been my comfort zone. Like as a kid, I've written my whole life. It's been my solace. I was a journaler as a teenager. It was where I went to when I felt stressed. I could just release my thoughts in my journal. And the reason I became a writer, I think the reason that was my comfort zone is because I got bullied for standing out. And but there was this frustration too, because writing is amazing. I love writing because you have the space to polish things. Like you can think about the words you want to say. You can be very specific and intentional. But with Facebook Live, it's much more impromptu. And there's a different type of skill required to express your message verbally than it is to write it. But there's power in this verbal expression, because you get to hear someone's tone of voice, you get to see their personality, you get to see more of who they are on a level that's different from writing. So what I was realizing was I want to expand how I'm able to share my message. And so I decided to do the Facebook Live challenge, and some really unexpected things came out of that, which I think is a really powerful tool for people that are wanting to explore their message more in depth. And actually, you said it, you've already said this in the interview, it's when you have the space to speak, you often say things you didn't know you knew. So for example, when I'm doing my Facebook Live, I will take a topic. So today my topic was why I'm not afraid of eye contact. And
okay.
And then what happened, just stuff came out because I was able to, so that's another thing I would suggest is just know that the message you're sharing today is not the message you'll be sharing in a few years' time. But the message you're sharing today, where you are right now, is where you are right now. And it's always going to improve. There's always room for improvement. And it's so easy to compare ourselves with people that have been doing this for years and think, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not, I haven't got enough followers, all these kind of things. But everyone starts somewhere. And the key thing is to start. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel. And just remember the intention. It's about your personal development and your self-expression, as well as building your business.
Oh, I love that. That is so good. And like, yeah, you're right. Especially like journaling and writing is very different than actually doing a live. So I love that even like as you're doing your live, it's like you've already learned things along the way that you wouldn't have pulled out, right? Because it requires a different skill. And so like, I just love, and I love that you're doing the challenge. The challenge totally has liberated me in doing lives. It's such a natural thing now. And so like for your journey, just like, even like, just looking at your trajectory, I just wanted to commend you because like a school teacher to counselor, right? You're a contemplative counselor.
No, so school teacher to copywriter. So I mentioned counselling because I had counselling personally, and that was the thing that really triggered this jump into personal development.
Gotcha. And then to doing a copywriter now, like your own work, like that that I think in and of itself is incredible. Like that, most people are linear, and how your journey itself is nonlinear, I think is so, it's just fascinating and very encouraging, because most are taught to like follow this line. And so I just wanted to hear your journey with that.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to go to university from the age of 8. That was my entire goal. Go to university. I was going to be like one of the first people in my family to go and get a degree. I was hyper focused on that goal. And so I went to university, I got a degree, and then I was like, oh, now what? I actually really didn't know what I wanted to do beyond that point. And I jumped into, I got a scholarship for a retail management program in the UK. So I was like, right, I'll do that. Absolutely hated it. And then I got a place on this management access program for Royal Mail, which was amazing. And at that point, like, it was like my parents were so happy, because it's like, right, I've got a job for life. This is a great graduate job, amazing career progression. Like, you've done it, you've made it. And like for a while, I was really happy in the work. I really enjoyed it. It was challenging, and I met some great people, and I did some, we did some great work. It was great. And then there reached a point where I had this feeling of this work doesn't feel purposeful to me. And I would think, if I didn't show up today, would it really make a difference? Would it really matter? And that was really gnawing on me. I really didn't like the thought of my work not being purposeful, that things weren't purposeful for me. And I went to a workshop by this guy called Nick Williams, who had just written a book called The Work You Were Born to Do. And this book changed my life, because it was the first time I'd ever heard this concept that your work and your life can be the same thing. They don't have to be separate. And until that point, for me, it was like work during the week, play at the weekends. And Nick really encouraged me to like look at, what did I enjoy? What were my passions? And it was writing. It was also helping people. And so I got to the point where I was like, right, I can't be in this corporate world anymore. Like, I cannot be in this corporate world anymore. This is going to make me ill. And so I kind of do crazy things every now and again. I'm pretty sensible, and then I can get to the point where I just go crazy. So it's like, right, I've got to quit this job. And I'm going to go to India and travel India for 6 weeks by myself. So I did that. I went and quit my job, and then I phoned my mum and said, Mum, just quit my job. By the way, I'm going to India for six weeks.
I love it.
Bearing in mind, this is before social media, right? This is before, like, my mobile phone was a brick at the time. But it was the most liberating thing ever. And then I thought, right, I want to help people. What can I do? Oh, I'll train to be a complementary therapist, because at least it's a stepping stone. So that's what I did. I trained to become a complementary therapist for a year. And then I got into teaching from that. And then when my second daughter was born, I was like, right, I need more space, more time. My mum said, why don't you be a copywriter? Like, you always love writing. I was like, okay, I'll try that. So I taught myself, and here I am, a decade later. So yeah, this decision to be purposeful, that is the thread as well, since I left corporate. Like, wanting to feel like my work is meaningful, that it makes a difference, that it's impacting. And I've been so lucky, like the people I've worked with in my copywriting work over the last decade, worked with some incredible people, like amazing people who have amazing messages. They've got incredible products that are doing great things in the world. And I'm just so grateful that I get to be a part of helping those businesses kind of grow and expand and make their impact, because impact's so important to me.
I love it. And, like, we talked in the beginning a little bit that we connected also through human design. And as you're sharing, I'm like, this is a manifesting generator.
Yeah, I'm a manifesting generator. You're right. As you know, because you did my reading.
It's just so beautiful, because man-gens are designed to not just have one thing, it's like, and you just live that out so beautifully. Do you remember your profile? Do you have a 2? Are you a...
Yeah, 2-4.
Yeah. So like, I love how it's like, even if you didn't know human design, it's like the fact that your mom was like, oh, you should be a copywriter. And you're like, oh, cool. Cause you like writing. You're like, I learned how to do it. And then that's such a, it's just so amazing. It's like beautiful. And it's actually really fun to just hear your own journey and how it's like your own thread that you realize it's like through writing. And it's so important for you to have purpose and be impactful, because I feel like that's what's really guided your career path and your life.
Yeah.
And I think it's so ballsy that you're like, I'm going to India for 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like, honestly, it was one of the best things I've ever done. Like, it was probably 18 years ago now, and I still think about it so much. Like, it was
That's
just
ballsy.
I think the thing, and it really did change me in so many ways, because until that point, I only ever visited Western countries. So seeing a different culture, I loved the culture. I loved seeing how different people were inspired by different things, and how different people needed different things to be happy. It was just such an amazing place to be. Like, it had such an impact on me and my life. I'd love to go back again. Like, definitely.
That's incredible. Well, how can people learn more about you?
So you can come find me on my website, which is currently being rebuilt. So it's findyouryou.co.uk. On Facebook and Instagram, mostly Facebook. And I also host the Writing Your Best Self podcast for Best Self Co, which, Michelle, I know you know about that because you were one of my guests recently. And on that podcast, I love talking about journaling.
Amazing. And then if people want to like work with you, like what's the process?
Yeah, so I'm in the process of creating a mastermind. But what I'm wanting to do is to just help more people discover their message, the message of you. So this involves looking at the 3 different aspects of message making. So your visibility, your vault. So your visibility, that's like who you are as the messenger. Then the vault, that's the knowledge you're here to share. And then the vision, it's like the bigger picture for what the message stands for and what you want to bring into the world. And so looking to help people like really dig into doing that deep dive introspection work to discover like who you are, like what life has taught you, what you're here to share, and helping people to like share that consistently.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So I'll put all of that information in the show notes for the listeners. And please tag us both on Instagram. If you resonate with this episode, you can share us in your stories. And it's been such a pleasure, Georgina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you for listening to the Sacred Emergence podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and thank you in advance for sharing this with others who can benefit. Until next time.